You ever wonder if grammar lessons could actually be, fun? Well, today we're going to dive into a brilliant set of lesson plans that do just that. We'll break down a playful, activity-based way of teaching English tenses that's all about replacing boredom with some real, genuine engagement.
Go on, just take a second and think back. Picture yourself in that classroom. What pops into your head? For me, it was endless worksheets, diagrams of sentences that made absolutely no sense, maybe the smell of chalk dust.
Yeah, if you're anything like me, your memories of grammar probably feel a lot like these words right here. Grammar was often taught like this rigid, scary fortress of rules, and it had very little to do with how we actually talk in the real world.
But what if we could just scrap that old model entirely? What if, instead of just memorizing a bunch of rules, students could actually discover them? Through play and conversation and just being creative. That is the exact question these lesson plans are trying to answer. So, this whole approach, it's built on what you might call a recipe for engagement. It's really simple structure that you can actually adapt for any tense. It's way less about lecturing and a lot more about helping students discover things for themselves.
And here it is. This is the secret sauce, this core three-part pattern. Every single lesson follows this flow. First, you have an engaging starter, something to warm everyone up and get them curious. Then, you jump into an interactive discussion to get the students talking, working together. And finally, you wrap up with a creative activity to really make the idea stick. The whole point is that they're doing things, not just passively listening.
Okay, so theory's one thing, right? But let's see how this actually works in practice. We're going to walk through the lesson for teaching the simple past tense, talking about something that already happened.
Now, what's so brilliant about this is that none of it feels like a grammar drill. The starter is just a fun voice game. The discussion turns into this group storytelling session where everyone adds to a story about what they did yesterday. And the final activity, it's just a simple recognition game, not some high-pressure test.
And this is the aha moment. After they've been creating their own stories and hearing all these sentences, students are just asked to spot the word that signals it happened in the past. See, it's not about defining a rule from a textbook. It's about identifying a pattern they've literally just been using themselves. So simple, but so effective.
All right, so now let's see how that same idea works for other tenses. We're going to move along the timeline, from the past to what's happening right now, and then into what's going to happen next.
When we get to the simple present, the lesson plans get physical. The idea is to connect the grammar directly to things you can see and do, right here, right now.
And hey, what's more active than a game of charades? The real trick here, though, is that students have to answer in a full sentence. So they're not just yelling out sleeping, they have to actually build a present tense sentence. You are sleeping, linking the action to a person in real time. It's genius. Okay, so for the future tense, the focus shifts a little. It moves away from physical action and more towards imagination and teamwork, getting students to think about tomorrow.
I love this game. It's so simple, but it's really powerful. The teacher just gives the grammatical frame, I will have, and the student gets to fill in the blank with whatever they want. This gives them a sense of ownership, and it makes the lesson really personal and easy to remember. They're not just learning a rule, they're using it to talk about their own life.
All right, now for the really tricky part. Because this method, it doesn't just stick to the easy stuff. This next section shows how it deals with one of the biggest challenges for English learners, telling the difference between all those forms of the present tense. This is where so many people get stuck, right? What is the actual difference between I eat, I am eating, and I have eaten? Well, instead of starting with a super confusing chart, this method starts with a really clever game. Let's just walk through this because it's fantastic. The facilitator puts some things on a table, tells the students to close their eyes, and then hides one of the objects. When they open their eyes, the teacher asks, "What happened?" And the natural, intuitive answer is something like, "You have moved the pen." The game itself is designed to make them use the exact tense you're trying to teach. It is discovery-based learning at its absolute best.
And here's the key. Only after all the games and activities does the formal stuff, like this table, show up. And at this point, it's not a tool for memorization. It's a tool for organizing the knowledge that the students have already experienced themselves. The play creates the context, and then this chart just provides the clarity.
So when you pull all of these different pieces together, a really clear and powerful philosophy starts to take shape. It's a fundamental shift in how we can think about teaching grammar.
If you take away one thing, let it be this. It all starts with play. This whole approach uses stories to give grammar a reason to exist. It values conversation as the main way we learn. And most importantly, it trusts that students can figure out the rules for themselves if we just give them the right space to do it.
And ultimately, this entire way of thinking is built on a very simple but very powerful idea. The real point of teaching grammar, it isn't just to make students memorize a long list of abstract rules.
No, it's to empower them so they can use language confidently, creatively. It's about taking something that feels kind of dead and dusty on a page and turning it into a living, breathing tool that they can use to express themselves.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If this playful, hands-on approach can completely change something as famously dry as grammar, what else could it work for? What other subject that we all remember as being just boring could be totally reimagined through the power of play?